The Gaza war, day 241. The IDF identified the body of a victim the country thought had been kidnapped. Dolev Yehud, 35. Meanwhile, rockets blared in Eilat as the IDF continues to dismantle Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The latest on the war from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
The IDF has identified the body of 35-year-old Dolev Yehud, who Hamas murdered in Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7. Until now, it was believed that he had been kidnapped. Yehud was a paramedic with United Hatzalah and Magen David Adom. He left his home in an attempt to save lives before being attacked by Hamas. Dolev's body was discovered shortly after the massacre. However, he could not be identified. The IDF notified Dolev's family following an identification process that was carried out by medical officials from the National Institute of Forensic Medicine and Shura military base. DNA tests verified with certainty that it was indeed him. As the IDF continued its operations in the city of Rafah and the Gaza Strip overnight and in the morning, missile sirens sounded in the area near Eilat. The IDF Arrow aerial defense system successfully intercepted a surface-to-surface missile that was fired from the direction of the Red Sea toward Israel. In the past day, the IDF discovered terror infrastructure and large caches of weapons during their searches. In one raid, they found RPG missiles in a military structure. In the central Gaza Strip, IDF troops are actively eliminating terrorists. Yesterday, after identifying multiple terrorists at a sniper post, an IDF aircraft targeted and eliminated them. Additionally, in a coordinated effort with the IDF ground forces eliminated a Hamas rocket operative in the area. IDF fighter jets struck over 50 targets in Gaza yesterday, including terrorist infrastructure, weapons storage facilities, and military structures. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken had a discussion with the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant regarding a plan to establish a comprehensive ceasefire in Gaza linked to a hostage release agreement. The plan also aims to enhance the delivery of humanitarian aid across Gaza. Last night, Gallant said that Israel would not accept Hamas continuing to rule Gaza at any stage during the process of winding down the war, and that it was examining alternatives to the Islamic group. However, he did not mention what those alternatives were.
בכל שלב, בכל תהליך סיום של המלחמה, לא נקבל את שלטון החמאס כשלטון בעזה.
Hamas has ruled the Gaza Strip since 2007. Minister Benny Gantz, chairman of the National Unity Party, also spoke with Blinken. Gantz said that he reiterated to the secretary the imperative of American pressure on the negotiators to ensure the implementation of the arrangement proposed by Israel.
Hezbollah and Israel continue to exchange fire on the northern border. Moreover, Syria has accused Israel of carrying out an attack in the city of Hayyan that killed at least 12 people.
As Hezbollah rockets continue to slam Israel's northern border, IDF fighter jets struck a Hezbollah launcher and military structures in the areas of Nakora, Marun al-Ras, and Khayyam in southern Lebanon. The move comes after a drone fired by Hezbollah fell in the Israeli coastal city of Nahariya on Sunday, causing a fire but no injuries. The military said in a statement that it tried unsuccessfully to intercept the drone. Several people were killed in suspected Israeli airstrikes near Aleppo, according to Syria's defense ministry. Reports indicate that the overnight attack targeted a copper plant in Hayyan, north of the city. Video reportedly showing the aftermath revealed large flames shooting out of a building. Israel has not commented on the strike. Israel has conducted hundreds of strikes in Syria since the civil war began, mainly to prevent weapons transfers to Hezbollah and to stop Iranian fighters from establishing a presence near Israel's border. Aleppo, however, is on the opposite side of Syria from Israel, making the strike further than most previous attacks attributed to the country, although Jerusalem is believed to have ordered strikes in the region before. The last suspected strike in Syria was on May 29th, an attack blamed for the death of a girl in Banyas, a coastal city. Hezbollah has been exchanging near daily fire with the Israeli army since the day after the Hamas attack on October 7th. In the early stages of the war, Hezbollah mainly used anti-tank missiles fired from southern Lebanon toward northern Israeli settlements. However, Israel's Channel 12 reports that Hezbollah has since upgraded its tactics, now using explosive drones, suicide UAVs, and Birkin rockets. In recent months, Hezbollah claims to have launched dozens of Birkin rockets towards Israel, primarily targeting military sites such as the Birnit Post and the Gibor camp in Kiryat Shmona. The documented destruction of these military facilities shows the significant damage a single rocket can cause. Developed with Iranian assistance, the Birkin rocket was first used in the Syrian civil war. Since then, Hezbollah has increased its use and improved its capabilities. An expert told the Israeli media outlet that there are two ways to deal with Birken rockets: using good intelligence to destroy components before they launch, or deploying advanced systems like the Iron Beam and integrating them with other air defense tactics.
As Hezbollah continues attacks on Israel's northern front, the IDF is facing increasing pressure on multiple fronts, including the diplomatic front. As mentioned, the proposal from President Biden to have a 6-week pause in fighting followed by negotiations is still on the table. Here to speak with us about all of these challenges is Dr. Kobi Michael of the Misgav Institute. Kobi, thank you so much for joining us today. To start, I'd love to hear your take on Biden's proposed ceasefire deal. Is this something that Israel can or even should accept?
Good afternoon. I think that there are some flaws or some problems with this proposal. Although it is referred to Israel and it was introduced as a proposal of the Israeli government, I think that it is a very creative interpretation to the Israeli government framework or proposal. I would say that there are at least three major problems. The first one is the second phase of this proposal that says that the ceasefire or the pause will continue as long as the negotiation will continue, which means that even if this phase will last more than 6 weeks, the pause will last more than 6 weeks. And as far as I know, Hamas, it will last not 6 weeks, but 6 years, because Hamas has no interest to release all the hostages, because these are, the hostages, unfortunately, are the most efficient policy insurance that Hamas has, and they will demand very clear guarantees from the US that Israel will not resume the war and that Israel will not attack or will target Hamas leaders or activists, something that Israel cannot agree. The second problem is the idea of the replacement of Hamas. President Biden didn't refer to that. Who is going to replace Hamas? Because according to the proposal that was introduced by President Biden, Hamas will remain there, because if now we are entering to phase one, to a pause or ceasefire, it means that we are entering a pause where Hamas is still in power. So although we said in one sentence that Hamas will not remain in power, eventually Hamas remains in power. And how exactly any entity will be able to replace Hamas in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas is still in power? And the third problem that I can refer to is the asymmetry, the absurd asymmetry that President Biden created between the US and Qatar. US will guarantee the commitments of Israel, and Qatar will guarantee the commitments of Hamas. First of all, US as a superpower and Qatar, okay, as a sort of a very small regional player here, and there is a symmetry between of them. Secondly, Qatar has an interest that Hamas will remain in power. Qatar is the biggest provider and supporter of Hamas. So how exactly we can rely on Qatar? We saw what Qatar did till today, and Qatar till today didn't exercise all the leverage that it has over Hamas. So I think that in order to summarize, I would say that we are talking about a very problematic proposal with a very low probability that it will be eventually realized.
Now, moving to the north, we do see a significant escalation in those attacks against Israelis by Hezbollah. What is prompting this escalation the last few days, and how do you believe that Israel should respond?
The escalation in the north is not something new. Unfortunately, Hezbollah, since October 8th, set the equation, the kinetic equation between Hezbollah and Israel, and Hezbollah just take the threshold of this equation upper and upper, almost in each day, and mainly recently. And unfortunately, Israel is only, I would say, Israel is very reactive in this regard. Israel does not initiate. And Hezbollah finds itself in a sort of a strategic comfort zone because they have the backing of Iran that feels that there is no deterrence because the US is very reluctant with regard to any sort of attack on Iranian assets. And they understand that the US is very reluctant from the idea of expanding the regional war here. So Iran pushes and encourages Hezbollah and the other proxies to escalate the situation. Just yesterday, another missile, ballistic missile that was launched from Yemen was launched over the sky of Eilat. And Hezbollah finds itself in a situation where its strategy is realized in a full success. Israel is dragged to an attrition war that costs a lot, not only economically. They see how the trust crisis between the Israeli society and the government is increases, how the mistrust or the distrust of the Israeli society vis-a-vis the IDF is growing, and they have the chance to learn, to study the flows of our defense system and to prepare themselves better to the D-Day. So if we will not change the equation and if we will not initiate, then we will find ourselves in a very critical situation.
Dr. Kobi Michael, unfortunately we are out of time, but I do want to thank you for that critical insight as to the deal and, of course, what's happening on the Northern Front. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
The Israeli Supreme Court convened Sunday for a 9-justice panel to review the draft exemptions by the Ultra Orthodox community. The court sided strongly against the Ultra Orthodox draft exemption, stating there was a crying need for more soldiers due to the war. Let's take a closer look at what happened. On Sunday, 9 Israeli Supreme Court justices heard petitions demanding the immediate draft of Israeli ultra-Orthodox men, thousands of whom are currently exempted from obligatory military service because they are studying in yeshivas. The Israeli government has spent years debating the issue and trying to find a compromise, but the war in Gaza has intensified the debate, as many believe the ultra-Orthodox are not sharing the burden.
It's a dramatic day for the state of Israel. Israel now is talking about the draft bill, and the draft bill needs to be the same for everyone. Orthodox, secular, everyone needs to join the army. It's not only about values. Of course, it's a value for us, but this is something that we need, because now Israel is in war in all the fronts. We are in war in the north, in the south, all over the country. And if we are in the war all over the country, so everybody needs to join the army.
The justices were harshly critical of the government's arguments against ultra-Orthodox draft into the IDF and also deliberated on funding cuts to the respective yeshivas where ultra-Orthodox men are studying rather than serving. The Attorney General argued in response that some 63,000 eligible ultra-Orthodox men should be drafted, but the justices focused on the minimum number, which was 3,000, that the ultra-Orthodox community have still refused to accept.
עכשיו, בעיצומה של המלחמה, אי אפשר לעמוד באותם 3,000 ולהתחייב לגביהם. דבר שנעשה באופן השגרתי הרגיל לפני שנים בטרם פרוץ המלחמה. על 3,000 אלה, על זה עכשיו אנחנו נתווכח?
During the hearing, several of the justices appeared to lose patience with the cyclical arguments of the government, which is seeking to delay the ultra-Orthodox draft in order to salvage a fragile political coalition. There is concern that the ultra-Orthodox parties will leave the coalition if the ultra-Orthodox men are drafted. In response to the hearing, thousands of ultra-Orthodox protested against the threat of a draft, including by shutting down roads in Jerusalem, tearing down flyers of slain IDF soldiers, and harassing Israeli police, calling them Nazis and other derogatory terms. 6 suspects were arrested in the protests. Following a dramatic day in the Israeli Supreme Court, tensions are running high in Israel, which is already dealing with tremendous pressure from both the war in Gaza and the Northern Front. As mentioned, there were large protests against even the threat of an IDF draft for the ultra-Orthodox community. Here to speak with us about this challenge is former MK Rabbi Dov Lipman. Rabbi Lipman, thank you for joining us today. I would like to start by asking you, why is there such a strong aversion to serving in the IDF in much of the Haredi ultra-Orthodox community?
This actually goes back over 75 years when the state was first founded, where the religious side saw the secular founders of the state of Israel as being leaders who wanted to create a state without religion, without Torah study. They saw them as atheists and a threat to Israel's future. And they circled the wagons and they said, we will have no part of what's happening in this state. And unfortunately, we have a leadership on the ultra-Orthodox side, and certainly the power makers in the Knesset, that are still taking that stance and not aware of the massive changes that have happened in Israeli society since then. But it all comes back to this place of we are afraid of our young men going to the army, becoming secular, and therefore we will not have a part of this effort.
What is your take on the dramatic events in the High Court yesterday? Do you believe the government is right to be fighting against an ultra-Orthodox draft? And why did it even get to this point in the court? I mean, has the Knesset failed to deal with this issue adequately?
There are two dramatic issues that are taking place at the same time. One is the war, in which even ultra-Orthodox Knesset members in the Shas party have mentioned we have to change our stance. You're seeing 35, 40-year-old reservists going back for tour of duty after tour of duty when you have 18 to 22-year-olds who could be going and taking part in this effort. We know we have a lack of manpower, and that is bringing most of Israeli society against the ultra-Orthodox stance. The second point, though, is there were conservative justices who the ultra-Orthodox side thought would be in line with them, and they came out very hard in the court yesterday about this issue, saying we can draft 3,000 young men out of 63,000. We can do that. What has really happened in the Knesset is everyone has just punted, kicked the can down the road, and not addressed a boiling issue in Israeli society, which really has to be addressed as you have so many young men and women going to war and this massive number of exemptions. I will tell you, though, Emily, that on the street level in Haredi, in the ultra-Orthodox society, there are things that are shifting. There are young men who have access to internet, they see what's happening in the war, they have a conscience, and they do want to serve. So you are going to have forces within the ultra-Orthodox community as well that are seeking some kind of a change from what they've called the status quo for decades.
Now, what do you believe can be done on the part of the government as well as society in Israel to promote more integration, to incorporate the ultra-Orthodox society more into the state so they feel comfortable and want to serve their country as well?
This is an issue which I've been dealing with for over a decade, and I do believe that by speaking to the younger generation, instead of trying to get the rabbis necessarily to make public proclamations, to be careful about how things are said. Don't present it as a culture war. Don't present it as anything pejorative about the ultra-Orthodox, but present them with opportunity. You can be fervently Orthodox, religious, you can be a Talmudic scholar, and you can earn a livelihood for your family, and you can get an education, and you can serve your country. And I would also say we're just reading now the Torah portion for this coming week in the book of Numbers, where it mentions a few times in the very beginning of the Torah portion, all the young men who are going to serve in the army. This is a part of who we are going back to biblical times. Do as much as we can to open up units in the army that meet the needs of the ultra-Orthodox in terms of prayer services, study, other cultural sensitivities. Come to meet them. Come with a message of we have what to offer you while you can remain religious and study Torah. And I think that's the formula to move forward. One last thing I'll mention is options for national service. They're already volunteering in huge numbers for Magen David Adom and for Hatzalah and for Zaka. Take those and concretize those as actual official service, and then you'll have massive numbers that are contributing and serving in an official manner. That will also take away a lot of the tension over this issue.
Absolutely. Well, we know from the other interviews that we've done, even here at ILTV, that there are organizations and communities that are working very hard to support those ultra-Orthodox soldiers in Netzach Yehuda and other battalions as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm hopeful we can come to to a better solution in the future to resolve this issue. Thank you for your time, Rabbi Dov Lippman.
Thank you so much.
Israel Day celebrations were muted this Sunday in New York City as organizers used the event to highlight the plight of the hostages, urging the Israeli government and Hamas to accept the latest hostage for ceasefire deal. ILTV's Devil Klein has the full story.
Holding banners high and chanting, "Bring them home," thousands of New Yorkers marched down Fifth Avenue in support for Israel. Sunday's march, titled Israel Day on 5th, was meant to celebrate Israel, yet organizers had decided to mute celebrations and use the opportunity to spotlight the hostages still held in Gaza. Among the attendees were Israeli Foreign Minister Israel Katz, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Israeli Eurovision Representative Eden Golan, and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who had this to say.
We will not relent. We will not back down. We must bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home now.
More notably, the Israeli Independence March featured hostage family members, including Ronen Neutra, the father of 22-year-old Omer, a New York-born American who was serving as an Israeli tank commander near Gaza on October 7th, when he is believed to have been taken captive by Hamas. Neutra reinforced the family's efforts to pressure relevant governments in bringing their loved ones home.
We need both governments here in Israel to work together with the Egyptian and the Qatarian and reach an agreement with Hamas. The world should put pressure on Hamas. And Americans should know 45 Americans were murdered and 12 Americans were taken. 8 of them are still in captivity.
The event took place under heavy security as the Israel parade was set to draw multiple counter-protests in a time where anti-Israel protests have swept American campuses and incited much violence.
We want the Israeli parade to go off well today. We want the crowds to have fun today, celebrate the heritage. We'll have no issues on a beautiful day.
Police did not report any parade-related arrests by late Sunday afternoon.
Well, in Mexico, the elections took place and the people have chosen a Jewish woman for the first time to lead the country. Let's hear more. Former Mexico City mayor and left-wing firebrand Claudia Sheinbaum made history Sunday as she won the presidential election in Mexico, making her the first female to hold the position and the first Jewish person to hold the position. Sheinbaum, who is 61 years old, won in a landslide victory with 58% of the vote.
Las mujeres lleguemos a la presidencia de la República.
For decades, Mexico has struggled with rampant corruption and cartel violence. For the elections alone, thousands of troops were deployed to protect voters, as the entire electoral process saw 25 aspiring candidates murdered. Sheinbaum is a physicist by trade, born to Jewish immigrants from Europe, but references her Jewish background rarely. Her primary agenda is to clean up the violent crime taking place throughout the country. On Israel, Sheinbaum has remained quiet, though Al Jazeera reported that she stated she is against the murder of Palestinian civilians, referencing her comments in a recent op-ed criticizing Israel in the Gaza war. Sheinbaum will take office for a 6-year term beginning October 1st. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 21 degrees Celsius or 71 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat will carry on through tomorrow, where clear skies are expected alongside temperatures which are set to reach highs of 34 degrees Celsius or 94 degrees Fahrenheit. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and check out our website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the state of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.